Hey, so I've got Dr. James Bennett with me, who is a GP and a portfolio fellow at the academic primary care department at Hull York Medical School. And he's also got an interest in medical education. So just asked him to tell us a bit about his career story to date. So James, can you tell us a little bit about what your current role involves?
Yeah, of course. Hi. So, yeah, as you said, I'm currently working with Hull York Medical Schools. There's an Academy of Primary Care there that I'm part of. So I do it's a bit complicated, but 6 sessions a week, some of which are delivering some teaching content now, but the majority of it is around bits of research, medical education, leadership, management, that side of things. So yeah, it's quite a varied role, lots of interesting things, nice team to work with.
Brilliant.
And that goes alongside my clinical work, which is separate to that, obviously.
And what led you into becoming this portfolio GP?
I've always had an interest in medical education. That goes back to foundation training, really, sort of from out of the gate, from F1, F2, always looking to be involved with different teaching programs and opportunities. And I think recognizing perhaps where there were certain things that I perceived where there was an educational need, and trying to address that, whether that was for fellow junior doctors or nursing colleagues or whoever it might have been at the time. And I kind of kept that up throughout foundation training, and then in the interim between that and when I started GP training as well. And yeah, always found that really rewarding and liked going back and spending time with students. So it started as more of a hands-on interest in teaching, and then from that, I guess, developed into more of a trying to understand, how teaching programs are designed, how they get off the ground, how you go about planning those things, and wanting to find out a bit more about it. I never did any formal sort of academic training, so I wasn't an academic fellow at any point, either during foundation training or GP training. And then this job just was advertised. I think it was the first time in 5 years I picked up a copy of the BMJ, and it was in the back of that. And yeah, I just thought it sounded really interesting and different to what I've been doing, and I thought it would probably work really well alongside working as a GP, and perhaps give me a bit more insight into those things I'm interested in.
Fantastic. And what would you say the pros and cons are of doing that sort of role alongside your clinical role?
Yeah, it's not easy. I went into it straight after I CCT'd, so I was kind of newly qualified. I moved practices, started a new job in a new city, and then took this up at the same time. So finding that balance between clinical work and the academic side of things was a challenge to start with, and I think made harder by the fact that I had just qualified and that I was in a new practice and things. And the way that I originally structured my week, there were alternating days where I'd sort of be in practice one day and then the academic job the next day and then back in practice, and it was quite hard to put one hat on and take the other one off day after day. So that took a bit of getting used to, and then sort of restructuring in the week to make it easier. And then as I kind of grown in confidence with my clinical work after qualifying, I think the academic stuff has therefore, felt much more comfortable and relaxing. It always felt like a welcome break, but it's nice to try and integrate it a bit better. So yeah, it's going okay now.
And do you think it brings anything to your clinical role, having had this experience doing the teaching?
Yeah, I think it's certainly something where the benefits for me as an individual is having that headspace where the pace of the working day is slightly different, and I can think around problems that I've seen that are relevant to the things I'm interested in, and having an understanding of how curriculums are set up and how they're being delivered makes it easier for me when I'm at work and I'm debriefing trainee colleagues, so whether that's GP registrars or primary care practitioners, foundation doctors, now having that better insight into how their training is set up a bit more, that makes that process, I think, more valuable for them and certainly more interesting for me. And also, it's the aspects of taking on two roles that you go into it for, but nobody ever writes down about, in terms of, you feel more rested and you feel as though you've got more energy and drive when you're in either role, because you've got time away from that role during the week as well. So that balance has been really valuable over the last couple of years in particular, for obvious reasons.
Brilliant. And so if you had to give somebody some tips who was interested in trying to get started in medical education, what would you say?
Yeah, it's a good question. And medical education covers such a wide range of things. My other role at HIMSS at the moment is as one of the PBL and clinical skills tutors. So that's a more traditional kind of delivery role, and with a couple of different tutor groups each week. And I think it depends entirely on what part of medical education you're interested in. If you're somebody who really enjoys and thrives in that delivery of a curriculum and actually spending time with the students and watching them develop and progress, then it's looking for opportunities to get involved in that, talking to your local medical schools or hospitals, or talking to your practice manager about what opportunities, or partnership groups, about what opportunities there might be to get involved in that educational content. I think if you're somebody who's interested in developing your interest further, there are benefits to doing things like postgraduate certificates and master's degrees in these things. It gives you an opportunity to understand more about the theory that underpins the reason that we teach the things we do and how we do it. And it also gives you an opportunity to start getting experience in the research side of it, which has been new to me over the last few years and really enjoyable. So I think if it's that side of things you're interested in, then looking into those postgraduate qualifications and getting that experience is probably important. And I think it's just keeping an open mind. I don't have necessarily a clear career path in mind. I'm still quite flexible and moving from one thing to the next and keeping my mind open to different opportunities and meeting people along the way who, perhaps are going to be strong mentors. So, making contact with people who are in medical education already, and asking them if they would be happy to give you some advice or informal mentorship. I know there are mentorship schemes around in the country where you can put your name forward and you can find somebody that might be able to help support you with that. And that's something that colleagues have found very helpful. And I've been lucky in finding this job. I've had a lot of mentorship in-house, so I've not needed to find those schemes directly. But I think that they can be really helpful if you find the right one for you.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful. Thanks so much for spending the time to share out your story with everyone. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Bye now.
Thanks. Bye.